Hi, my name is Stephen Tryon. The purpose of my company, accountabilitycitizenship.org, is to build and sustain a community of positive, informed, and engaged citizens. Over the last 12 years, I've used my company as a platform for my blog and also to publish some books. In 2021, I published this book, which is a collection of essays designed to support the thesis that the principal virtues of the American political system should be intellectual humility, tolerance in pursuit of truth, and compromise. Today, I want to read you one short essay, one of my favorites, from this collection. It'll just take about 4 minutes or so. This essay was originally published on June 28th, 2018. It starts on page 47, and the title is Star Trek Lesson on Beating Hate. I am a bit of a Star Trek nerd. I've watched every episode of the original series, the Next Generation series, and all of the movies. I like the franchise because, like all good fiction, it weaves some powerful messages about common aspects of the human condition into its very uncommon settings. If you pay attention, there are some good lessons to be found in the adventures of the Starship Enterprise and its crew. One of my favorite episodes of all is The Day of the Dove, which aired the first week in November of 1968. For those of you who didn't live that time, let me provide a bit of historical context. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, Communist Russia, was at its height, with both sides armed to the teeth with enough nuclear, chemical, and conventional weapons to destroy the world many times over. Proxy hot wars were being fought in places like Africa and South America. The Vietnam War was at its height. At home, the Civil Rights Act was just a few years old, and the conflict between the federal government's enforcement of the new law and some state and local efforts to resist it was one source of violence in American cities. Just a year earlier, during the long hot summer of 1967, racial unrest had led to so much violence in Detroit that the government deployed the 82nd Airborne Division and the National Guard to help restore order. There was also conflict between those who were protesting the war in Vietnam and those who insisted we had to support our military. I think it is safe to say that racial and political tension was higher in 1968 than it had been since Reconstruction. In a span of just over 2 months in 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis on April 4th, and Bobby Kennedy, the Democratic nominee for the 1968 presidential election, was assassinated in Los Angeles on June 6th. The episode of Star Trek I am referencing in this blog aired 4 days before the 1968 presidential election. The lesson of The Day of the Dove is simply that hate and violence warp our ability to accurately perceive facts and reality, and that cycles of violence are vicious cycles where negative behaviors can reinforce each other and perpetuate, even magnify, the cycle. You can view the trailer for this episode on youtube.com. I wish everyone in our country would take 45 minutes and watch the whole episode. You can download it from Amazon and probably from other places as well. I wish everyone would familiarize themselves with the history of this turbulent time in America. A spoiler alert, the crew of the Enterprise joined forces with their arch enemies, the Klingons, to defeat a hate monster. They do it by recognizing that hate blinds us and that we can overcome it if we work to find common ground. We have a lot of common ground in America, but we should make an effort to celebrate the goodness in our country and what we have in common, even as we work through our disagreements over how to make it even better. We should focus on facts rather than on blind loyalty to this faction or that faction. Beware of any group that tries to prevent you from seeking common ground and understanding with others, any others, even the Klingons. Live long and prosper. hope you guys take a look at the trailer. I'll try to post a link to it with this video. And I hope you consider watching the whole episode of Star Trek that I reference in this essay. Thanks. Have a great day.